We're talking to Jim Begg, Director General of Dairy UK. Jim, why is the publication of the Voluntary Code so important?
Well, it's a code of best practice covering the contracts between the dairy companies and the farmers who supply them with milk. Now, this was a major element of the EU dairy package, which was agreed recently in Brussels. So we had to find a way of implementing this in the UK. Now, in contracts, we face the choice of regulation or finding a voluntary way forward. Everyone, farmers and dairy companies, preferred the voluntary route. But the dairy farmers did have some concerns about the current contractual arrangement. Things like being subjected to a price decrease, then being tied up in the contract for a long period of time. So we addressed these concerns. Now we can expect the government and the devolved administrations not to legislate on contracts. And that's a very important outcome for the industry. And it also shows what we can do when we sit down and talk through a positive solution to a problem across the supply chain. And that's very important too.
So what's the substance of the code?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that it won't change the market. We need to be absolutely clear about that. I mean, the market will always drive milk prices, but what it will do is it will instill a greater confidence, I think, between farmers and dairy companies about how and why milk prices move. So, for example, it will improve the transparency of the process and it will give farmers much more notice of price changes, which will allow them to better plan their production cycles. It will stop retrospective price changes altogether. It will provide for better consultation processes by dairy companies and more assurance, I think, for farmers that prices are fair. And it will also allow for what we call non-exclusive contracts, which means that in certain circumstances farmers can sell to more than one dairy company. Now that doesn't happen anywhere else in the world, to the best of my knowledge. But above all, if farmers aren't happy with the prices that they're being offered by their processor, then it will allow them to change direction and leave quicker if they see a better option. Now that was a very important point for the farming unions, and we've delivered on that.
But one of the main aspects of the code is a 3-month notice period for farmers. But farmers supplying co-ops don't benefit from this. Why is that?
Well, you have to understand that co-ops are also exempted from the EU dairy package in total. So the code, the voluntary code, reflects that to a degree. And it recognises that dairy farmer co-op members are in a very different type of commercial relationship with their buyer than farmers on, say, direct supply contracts.
And what would be wrong with regulation?
Well, essentially, regulation would require a new contract at any time, or at least at any time any major part of the contract change. The price, for example. Now this would make continuation of evergreen contracts practically impossible. And by evergreen contracts I mean where the security of notice for farmers and processors continues even though the price is subject to change. Now with regulation that security would be lost. And that would significantly undermine the stability of supply chain relationships. So no one wanted that. The code still protects the security of notice that the farmer gets from the dairy company. It's only the notice that the farmer has to give that's changing.
If the code was agreed at the end of August, why has there been a delay in publication?
We needed time to get legal clearance from the OFT. The OFT had a few points that they raised with us and they've been dealt with now. And it's important for everyone, I think, that the code is compatible with competition law. However, compliance with competition law also means that the code is voluntary. It's not possible to use a code to impose contractual requirements on the industry.
So what now? What happens next?
It's now up to individual dairy companies to take the code forward with their supplying farmers. And I mean, I can't commit any purchaser to adopting the code, but it's my expectation that there will be a competition probably amongst purchasers to demonstrate improvements in contractual arrangements and certainly the adoption of best practice. The code will evolve. It will be reviewed after a year. to assess its effectiveness, and it's my hope certainly that we can build on the code that we've started with and more discuss things across the supply chain to make it even better practical operating manual for the future.
And finally, are there any other issues that need dealing with?
Well, the next issue under the dairy package that does need looking at is the whole question of producer organisations, and that's where farmers can form themselves into groups, very large groups actually, for the purpose of collectively negotiating milk prices. Now, this is a part of the dairy package which will definitely come into the UK legislation. The government has to make legal provision for this. Now, there's a huge deal of interest in producer organisations, but I think it's important that the industry gets it right. If producer organisations do emerge, then dairy farmers have to be, they need them to be robust, and they need them to be properly organised. And on the other side, milk purchasers, the dairy companies, will have to have confidence that they will have a reliable milk supply partner to negotiate with. So just like with the voluntary code, this is another area where we think that best results will be achieved through discussions across the supply chain. We'd be very happy to work with farming unions in preparation for and even after the government consultation.
Jim, thank you very much for your time.